Parker Schnabel, once the celebrated face of Gold Rush and the youngest miner to ever extract millions from the frozen ground, is no longer behind the wheel of an excavator. Instead, he now sits behind bars after a stunning verdict in one of the most controversial environmental cases in mining history. His once thriving gold empire has come to a complete stop, and the sentence is final: life in prison with no parole and no remaining appeals. This is the same Parker who famously used his college fund to launch his mining career, who by the age of 24 had unearthed over $13 million in gold, and who transformed backbreaking labor into television success, bringing in $24 million in season 14 alone. Now that $16 million earned this year is frozen, his Dominion Creek claims are under legal scrutiny, and fans are left wondering how one of the hardest-working, most disciplined miners in reality TV went from a household name to a prison inmate. Parker had been handling high pressure since he was a teenager in the gold fields. By 24, he'd already struck over $13 million worth of gold, and season 14 saw his crew bringing in a staggering $24 million. With gold prices reaching new highs in season 15, Parker should have been enjoying the rewards. Instead, he faced a financial storm, personal breakdown, and a darker downfall. Somewhere in the pursuit of success and legacy, he made one critical decision that changed everything, leading him straight into a courtroom. At the start of the season, Parker was focused on one goal: 10,000 ounces of gold. That target, valued at over $26 million, required more than just grit. It demanded massive output, flawless execution, and no setbacks. To meet that goal, Parker made a bold and risky move. He spent $2.5 million on two massive claims, a Gold Run and Sulphur Creek. These weren't ordinary plots of land, they were legendary, some of the richest in the Klondike, known for producing $1.5 billion in gold over the past century. But they were also problematic, with stripped terrain, unstable ground, and hidden risks. Parker didn't blink. He saw an opportunity for greatness and was ready to stake it all. To make the new claims productive, Parker needed to relocate his largest wash plant, Bob, from Ken and Stuart's claim to Sulphur Creek. It was a daunting 25-mile haul, the longest he'd ever attempted. He gave his crew just 10 hours to complete the job. The timeline was extreme, but they pulled it off. Mechanics raced to repair damage, and Tyson Lee managed the logistics. Eventually, Bob was operational, and success followed quickly. In just 4 days, it produced 290.05 ounces, worth $766,000. Add 276.01 more ounces from Roxanne at Elbow Cut, and Parker's crew surpassed 6,000 ounces, $16 million earned, making the gamble seem like a winning bet. But trouble loomed beneath the surface. As work continued at Dominion Creek and Bridgecut, more problems emerged. Big Red, Parker's longtime wash plant and a key part of his operation for 12 seasons, finally failed. It had produced $53 million in gold and 34,300 ounces but broke down after years of service. With Big Red out and only Bob and Roxanne in operation, Parker's safety net vanished. He now needed everything to go perfectly, but it didn't. Unseen on TV were the legal issues building in the background. In his haste to expand before winter set in, Parker rushed into deals. He bought neighboring claims through a private agreement that bypassed proper environmental reviews. As soon as his crew began working on Sulphur Creek, regulatory questions arose about missing permits, the disturbance of a protected waterway, and old fuel tanks buried on site. These were questions with no clear answers. The warning signs were there: a delayed inspection, a quiet visit from government officials, but they went largely unnoticed until it was too late. The warning signs were there from the beginning. As Parker ramped up his operations, running around the clock, moving thousands of yards of gravel through protected zones, those early concerns escalated into formal subpoenas. Then came the major blow: federal charges accusing him of serious environmental violations. These weren't minor infractions, they were substantial. The allegations included illegal dredging, disruption of federally protected streams, and careless waste disposal, all connected to a $2.5 million land deal. As investigators dug further, more issues emerged, missing documents, unauthorized permit overrides, and, most damaging, inspection reports allegedly falsified by subcontractors under Parker's direction. The narrative of the show shifted dramatically, from gold counts to mounting evidence. Prosecutors argued that Parker deliberately pushed the boundaries of legality in his rush to reach a 100,000-ounce goal, cutting corners and ignoring repeated warnings, putting both the environment and public safety in jeopardy. The courtroom evidence was damning. There were 68 documented violations, over $3.1 million in unapproved site changes, toxic soil contamination near machinery zones, and more than 8,000 gallons of missing hydraulic fluid. Parker's defense argued that these were errors made by subcontractors, delays in paperwork, not crimes. They insisted there was no intent to break the law. However, court-reviewed emails told a different story. In one thread, Parker was seen pushing for continuous operation and urging his crew to disregard interference from regulatory agencies. This particular message resurfaced multiple times during the trial, each time silencing the courtroom even further. Then, the narrative took another turn. A former crew member who had quit mid-season came forward, claiming Parker had full knowledge of the paperwork issues and regulatory risks but chose to proceed regardless. It was no longer about assigning blame, it became a direct examination of a leader under immense pressure, willing to take extreme risks to hit production targets. The fallout was severe. Charges piled up: environmental damage, falsified reports, reckless mining on federal land. It wasn't a one-off lapse in judgment, it was a consistent pattern. Prosecutors described it as a willful disregard for regulations. When obstruction of justice was added to the case, the stakes escalated dramatically, threatening Parker's career. The court's decision was harsh. It declared Parker's actions caused the highest level of environmental damage, triggering sentencing guidelines that shocked observers. Yet, despite the media uproar, the final sentence remained oddly ambiguous. There was no mention of prison, no mugshot, no public walk of shame. Instead, Parker disappeared quietly from public view. Speculation ran wild. Some believed he was negotiating a restitution deal, others whispered about protective custody. But no official statements were made, and the silence was deafening. This was Parker Schnabel, Discovery Channel's breakout star. The teenager who had struck gold early in life, earning $13 million before turning 25, starring in 8 spin-offs including Gold Rush, A Parker's Trail, and pulling in $24 million in season 14 alone. Now, he had vanished without a trace or a word. The irony? Parker never chased fame or luxury. He didn't live extravagantly, no mansions, no exotic cars. Even at his peak, he confessed to crashing on a friend's couch in Los Angeles. He spent his earnings on experiences, hunting trips, adventures with his dad, time with his crew, baseball games, and weekends in Vegas. For him, it wasn't about wealth, it was about loyalty, camaraderie, and making memories. That perspective was rooted in his upbringing. His great-grandfather forged a life in the Alaskan wilderness. His grandmother joined him there in 1937. His father still rises at 4:30 every morning to work. Parker was raised among people who persevered, who endured hardship, worked through pain, and never gave up. That relentless spirit shaped him. And ultimately, it made his downfall all the more tragic. It was hard to watch. Parker once spent an entire summer working alongside his grandfather, sharing meals every night and listening to stories passed down through generations. That memory, the one he wishes he had recorded, means more to him than any amount of gold. Parker always knew that money fades, but legacy endures. And now, that legacy is in jeopardy. Season 15 was supposed to be his big return, the breakout year when he'd hit 10,000 ounces and leave the competition in the dust. Instead, it's being labeled a cursed season. Constant equipment failures, permitting disasters, and one legal threat after another, it all piled up. Parker pushed himself to work harder, faster, and smarter, but it wasn't enough. The stress caught up, and eventually, something gave way. No one's sure what happens next. The $16 million earned this season is tied up in legal limbo. Mining claims are paused. The crew is scattered, some staying silent, others trying to keep the operation from collapsing. But without Parker leading the charge, things just aren't the same. Dominion Creek was Parker's boldest move yet. Unlike previous ventures, he didn't lease the land, he bought it outright. That meant no monthly payments, no royalties, but also full responsibility. He wrote a $15 million check up front, with no refunds. And that was just the beginning. The gold wasn't easy to reach, it was buried more than 40 feet underground, requiring millions more in fuel, equipment, labor, and time to extract. On paper, it looked like a brilliant investment. Dominion holds an estimated 80,000 ounces of gold. At around $2,000 per ounce, that's $160 million buried in the ground. Parker didn't just see a mine, he saw a future. If he could extract 10,000 ounces annually over 6 years, he'd reach that goal. That was the plan. But there was a catch, only 6 years remained on the water licenses and permits. After that, renewal wasn't guaranteed. If regulators said no, everything left behind would become a complete loss. True to form, Parker went all in. His crew began moving massive amounts of dirt, 25 million bank yards over the life of the claim, or more than 4 million per season. Once processed, that volume expands closer to 30 million yards. That kind of output is grueling. Equipment breaks down. Crews burn out. Timelines slip. And the pressure isn't limited to Parker, it hits everyone. The weight was felt across the team, Tyson Lee, Mitch Blaschke, the entire crew. Every delay cost money. Every unrecovered ounce was a financial blow. With no safety nets, failure simply wasn't an option, not after that investment, not with the tight deadline, and not when everything depended on staying ahead of the curve. Looking back, Parker didn't get to this point by playing it safe. Since his debut on Gold Rush, Alaska in 2010, he stood out. While others splurged on trucks and gear, he focused on land, planning, and people. By the age of 24, he had already mined $13 million worth of gold. By season 14, his haul reached $24 million. The show documented his journey across the Klondike, Oregon, Colorado, even Guyana. He was tireless, strategic, and driven. But season 15 marked a turning point. Dominion changed the game, and the pressure. Parker admitted that his biggest fear wasn't the financial loss, it was losing his crew. Downsizing meant cutting ties with people who had stood by him from the beginning. He would rather take a hit to his bank account than lose them. That's why he chose expansion over retreat. He bought more land, ramped up production, and secured a royalty deal with Metallic Minerals for exclusive mining rights along a 12-kilometer stretch of Australia Creek. That deal alone required a $1 million annual commitment, plus royalties on every ounce pulled. So in addition to managing Dominion, Parker had an entirely new site under Little Flake Mining's umbrella. The scale of the operation exploded, and so did the need for a strong, dependable team. Parker made it clear he needed people who could handle extreme pressure. Anyone who couldn't keep up was out. No second chances. With a potential $200 million on the line, the standards were higher than ever. But bigger operations mean smaller margins for error. Every broken wash plant, every weather delay, every missed target, it all compounded. That's when the pressure began affecting relationships. Parker and Rick Ness barely interacted that season. They saw each other just twice the whole summer. One sit-down on camera addressed Rick's personal struggles, but otherwise, they stayed in separate lanes. The same was true for Tony Beets. In the past, Parker and Tony clashed over everything, permits, ground, royalties. But this time, they kept their distance. A few friendly coffees here and there, but nothing deep. Parker didn't owe Tony anything anymore. He had his own land, his own permits, and no royalty payments to worry about. That meant fewer confrontations, but also fewer connections. And when the weight of Dominion started to press down, there wasn't much support to lean on. Parker was all in, head down, pushing forward alone. Parker was still charging forward with his public goals. He sealed a major deal with Metallic and pressed on with a 400-hole drilling program. In 2022, he even received the Robert E. Leckie Award from the Yukon government for environmental stewardship, just 2 years before his operations came under legal scrutiny. It's a sharp reminder of how quickly things can change in mining. One year you're winning accolades, the next you're under investigation. Away from the cameras, Parker remained unchanged, humble, constantly on the move, and grounded. He didn't live in luxury mansions or fly in private jets. Instead, he crashed on friends' couches, 1 week in Los Angeles, the next in Mexico, sometimes in the Bahamas. He kiteboards, snowmobiles, and spends winters riding snowbikes, when they aren't breaking down. Flashy isn't his style. He's wired to keep moving, to keep pushing. And maybe, that's part of the challenge. While others questioned how someone in his 20s could rake in $13 million by 24, Parker was already reinvesting it, taking risks, and doubling down on new prospects, not from a boardroom, but from 40 feet underground at Dominion Creek, where a single wrong move could ruin an entire season. By 2024, his net worth was estimated between $8 and $10 million, not what many expected from the face of a top-rated Discovery Channel show for over 10 years. He's not into expensive watches or rare cars. He doesn't even own lavish properties, just a modest home in Haines, Alaska. It's a 2,000-square-foot cabin on private land by a quiet lake, built in 2015 with a metal roof and wood frame. Far from the glitz of Hollywood. When rumors once suggested he'd bought a $950,000 mansion, Parker denied it outright. He said he was homeless and preferred crashing on friends' couches. For most, that'd be hard to believe, but for Parker, it makes sense. This is the same guy who gambled his entire college fund on himself. While most teens were choosing dorms, he was studying rock formations and buying permits. His $17 million bet on Dominion Creek wasn't his first, it was just his biggest, boldest, and riskiest. The ground there wasn't easy. The gold was buried 40 feet beneath frozen soil. To make it work, he'd have to move 30 million bank cubic yards of earth over 6 years. That's 5 million yards annually, every year, without pause, not just for machines, but for the team operating them. Dominion wasn't a regular mine. It was a gold-hungry beast, and Parker was the only one ready to take it on. Even when gold prices hit historic highs, he didn't let up. He expanded his crew, bought more equipment, and took on more debt. He inked royalty agreements with Metallic Minerals for Australia Creek, committing $1 million per year in work and paying upfront royalties. Parker wasn't just digging for gold, he was building a mining empire. And it wasn't limited to the Yukon. He expanded worldwide: Guyana, Papua New Guinea, Alaska, Australia, Brazil. From the icy Klondike to humid jungles, glacier to rainforests. When most crews paused for winter, Parker was across the globe, filming Parker's Trail, chasing gold in the most unforgiving corners of the world, dealing with bugs, landslides, language barriers, altitude sickness, whatever it took. Once, he collapsed from altitude sickness at 16,000 feet in the Andes. Still, he pressed on. And all the while, the cameras kept rolling. Between Gold Rush, Parker's Trail, merch sales, sponsorships, and streaming rights, that $2,500 per episode salary added up fast. Some estimates say he earns over $4 million annually, factoring in mining revenue, TV income, and licensing. Even his crew takes home $10,000 to $25,000 per episode. It's a well-oiled, highly profitable machine. But here's the twist: despite all the money, shows, and fame, Parker wasn't in it for the cash. He was chasing something more meaningful: legacy. Trying to live up to the standards set by his grandfather. Protecting his crew. Proving that a small-town kid from Alaska could take on the toughest industry in the world, and win. That's why the current situation stings more than usual. This isn't a celebrity scandal. It's Parker Schnabel, the mud-covered kid who never gave up, the man who built a gold empire with a backhoe and a team of loyal miners. Seeing that all put on pause, even temporarily, shakes people, fans, investors, fellow miners, everyone. His $16 million haul from the latest season is now frozen. His Dominion Creek claims are under legal review. His royalty sites are quiet. His future feels uncertain. Discovery may still be airing season 15, but the elephant in the room is hard to ignore. No one says it aloud, but everyone senses it. So now the question is, does Parker return stronger than ever, or is this the final chapter of a golden era?